Prudence Carter. I'm the Dean of the Graduate School of Education, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you to the 20th birthday party of the Principal Leadership Institute at UC Berkeley. It's such a pleasure to stand here before you. Many of you who are the alumni and current students of the 20 cohorts that have gone through, the supporters and the sustainers, the teachers, the mentors, the coaches, the faculty, the friends. Thank you for being here this evening. It really is wonderful to see all of you. So I'm not here to speak. It's actually my task to introduce a distinguished guest who's been with us for the last hour or so and who's here to talk to you. I'm here as members of the PLI community. She's a distinguished scholar, researcher, policymaker. Dare I say she's the world's most impactful scholar, researcher, practitioner, policymaker. And I am so very glad to be able to call her my dear friend, my mentor. Dr. Linda Darling Hammond is here. As many of you know, she is currently the president of the California State Board of Education, and she's also the CEO and founding director of the Learning Policy Institute, which is a think tank, informational resource research institute that is doing incredible things in terms of bridging research to practice and policy. Dr. Darling Hammond is also a professor emeritus of Stanford University, the Charles E. Dukoman Professor Emeritus at Stanford University, and I had the opportunity to actually help and work with her and learn from her as we co-founded the Stanford Center for Opportunity Policy and Education scope. So it's just an honor to have you, Linda. Thank you so much for being here. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to the podium as you get to talk to this community, the current students, the graduates, the supporters, the community of the Principal Leadership Institute.
Wow, look at you. You are beautiful, I will tell you. I got to California in about 1998, and the PLI started the next year. Woo! And by the year 2000, we were already hearing about you, about the great work that this institute was doing, both at UC Berkeley and at UCLA. And over the years, as people have said, how do we prepare leaders for our schools? I was one of many people turning to say, look at what PLI is doing and emulate that. So to see you here, you know, there is no way that you can improve the quality of education, the retention of teachers, the ability of schools to meet the vast demands placed on them without investing in school leadership. Each of you has made that personal investment, and this institution has made that institutional investment. And we should really appreciate that, not only from the perspective of those of you who've been participants, which we all value, and you're doing great work all across the Bay Area and the state, and probably some of you from out of state. How many here are now out of state carrying this forward? Okay, we were going beyond the boundaries of California. But also, I think of this work that you're doing as a way to help lead the state of California forward. In the work that we're doing at the State Board and the work that I was doing previously as chair of the Teacher Credentialing Commission, we have reached out to PLI to be a standard bearer. Now, this is not a setting in which you need or want a long speech, so I'm not going to make a long speech, but I am going to say a few words about a study that Learning Policy Institute, which I lead, has just completed about the PLI at Berkeley. We have been studying, first we did a study of programs of teacher preparation that help prepare teachers for deeper learning. How do you help teachers learn to work with kids in a way that allows them to think critically and problem solve and reduce opportunity gaps? And then we looked at leadership development programs. We looked far and wide to find such programs. It was a little bit of a needle in a haystack to find leadership programs, but I knew that PLI from the beginning was going to be one of them, and we just finished the study. So I just want to let you know, this will be coming out in the next few months. There'll be a book out later next year that you will be featured. Many of your voices will be in this book because you talked to us about your experiences. We found that 100%, this is really amazing, 100% of PLI graduates felt well prepared for the principalship in high-need communities where they go to practice. Extraordinary. We found that 95% or more felt well prepared to lead in a way that supports equity, social justice, and deeper learning. We heard people talk about the ways in which they learned and were able to model these practices. And I'm just going to quote a few of you to you. One person made the point that the PLI gives you the tools, the framework, and the legitimacy to actually speak with authority about the importance of the kids who are normally marginalized and underserved, their needs, and their families. Another PLI alum said, and you learn how to put it into your budgeting, right? Where the money meets the road, where you put your resources is, where your belief systems actually are. Looking at my master's schedule, how I allocate funds towards developing programs to support students who've been historically marginalized, that's taking money from somewhere else, and you know this as leaders. And so that really is a belief system. It's a tangible thing that a leader can do to really frame equity. Put your money where your mouth is. And you learn how to do that here. The knowledge and the skills that lead to greater equity were ubiquitous among all the people participating in this program as instructors, as mentors, as coaches, as participants, as current principals, vice principals, as alumni. And you know, all of the candidates said they were well prepared to lead a school-wide change process to improve student learning, achievement, and equity. And that's an extraordinary thing because nobody wants to change. We all like things the way they are, and yet our system needs to change. And not only knowing that that's important, but knowing how is an extraordinary accomplishment. And finally, PLI leaders feel skilled in facilitating the productive conversations that lead to change, and talked about how they saw that modeled in their courses. One person said, when we're meeting in our different groups, this is in the PLI courses, instructors would be walking around and listening. They'd give us feedback and say, hey, you might want to think about that. You might have heard this. Or, have you guys considered X, Y, and Z? I know for sure that kind of mirroring back the process you're seeing happen and the group dynamics that might be getting in the way of the work. Absolutely, I've done that with my staff, and I'm sure many of you have done that. The facilitation and awareness of people and things that are getting in the way of what they're trying to achieve, that's a leadership move that's important that I learned in the PLI. So we took away 5 big lessons from this study. First, preparing diverse social justice leaders begins with equitable recruitment and admissions practices, and you are evidence of that commitment. Second, the PLI has a clear vision of leadership for deeper learning, aligned teaching, learning, and organizational development, an inquiry stance, a collaborative mindset, and equity lens. Third, the PLI's development of effective social justice-oriented school leaders requires exemplary collaboration between instructors, coaches, and program faculty. Those of you who have done that collaboration, congratulate yourselves. It's rare in higher education. The fourth, PLI's partners with other organizations model how transformational social justice-oriented leadership can be enacted inside of schools, the Ailey Camp, which many of you are familiar with, and many other organizations. And finally, candidate assessment and teaching and learning are centered on demonstrations of practice and competency development. You guys do not just talk the talk, you walk the walk. We appreciate you. The state appreciates you. We are going to learn from you and create these kinds of programs all over the state, and some of you are going to help us do that. So, looking ahead, remember, about 150 years ago, Horace Mann made this statement: where anything is growing, one former is worth 1,000 reformers. You are the formers of the schools we need and want for our children. Hold that thought and help us form that work all across California. Thank you.
I've had such interesting conversations this evening since I've been here with many of you about the work that you're doing in the K-12 system. And I can't tell you how talking to you has reinforced and deepened my desire to do what I do. Because this is hard work. Working in education is not easy, particularly because you have a social institution, it's a cultural institution, political institution. It's the field of life on which every other profession is based. Everybody has to go through school, right? But yet it is one of the most under-resourced fields in the country. And you're doing what I call God's work. So I want to say thank you for your commitment, the depth of your dedication, for being leaders in schools, for working in the trenches in our schools throughout the state of California. And I'm so glad that you allowed us here at the Berkeley GSE to be a part of that trajectory, to be a part of your career trajectory. So thank you. I am really honored to introduce our first speaker for the evening. Well, not so much speaker, but she's bringing greetings on behalf of the university. She is the 11th Chancellor of the University of California at Berkeley. She is, you have to say this because she's a history maker. She is the first woman in the 150th years of UC Berkeley to lead this institution. And she is a trailblazer and a stabilizer. She's leading us through an intense period. She has already led us. Leadership is so important, as you know, because that's what we're celebrating tonight. She has already led us through the reduction of an incredibly daunting structural deficit. Chancellor Carol Christ is here to be with us and to welcome you this evening, and I welcome her to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel so privileged to be asked by Prudence to welcome you tonight, to add my greetings to hers, particularly because I remember the moment when the PLI was created 20 years ago, because that was when I was provost first time around. And I wanted to say a little bit about the context of those conversations. This was after Proposition 209. And so we were thinking really hard about how we could create different kinds of programs and structures that would maintain the diversity of the University of California at Berkeley. And I had lots of conversations with teachers because we realized that outreach was going to be absolutely fundamental to our admissions pipeline. And what I heard from all those discussions with teachers was how critical the leadership of principals was. They kept saying, If you're at a school that doesn't have a good principal, doesn't have a visionary principal, it makes your job so difficult. And so that's one of the things that led us in the multiple conversations that we had at multiple levels with the state legislature, with people on this campus, with people in the system, to imagine the Principal Leadership Institute. And I have to tell you, it's so inspiring to stand in the middle of this room, to see all the diversity that's represented in this room, and to realize that every single person here is someone who has dedicated his or her life to making kids' lives better. So I want to thank you for your work. I'm going to end with a kind of anecdote. My granddaughter, who's 7 going on 8, has often tried to figure out what I do. And she said one day, "Grandma, you're the principal of the school, aren't you?" And I felt so honored by that, because I think principals, they play such an extraordinarily important role in our schools, the education of our young people that we so happily recruit here at Berkeley and hope to continue changing their lives. So thank you for your work.
Good evening. In true PLI style, I'm going to ask everybody to huddle up. Come on, let's get closer. We're a family. Let's move it in. Let's get close together and come and commune together. And if somebody's not listening behind you, you just turn around and tell them to come on. All right. So my name is Rebecca Cheung. I'm the director of the Principal Leadership Institute here. And when I think about all the events I've attended, I say that PLI love is in the room. Does anybody feel the PLI love? Yes. And so in true PLI style, I'm going to start with gratitude. Okay? So let's thank Dean Carter and Chancellor Christ, and also President of the State Board of Education, Linda Darling Hammond, who took their time to celebrate with us. Thank you. Secondly, I would like to thank those who had to travel more than 100 miles. Tell us who you are. If you travel more than 100 miles to be here tonight, yes. We have people here from Los Angeles, from Utah, from also from Washington, D.C. Where is Linda Treadway? All right. Thank you all who traveled from near and far to celebrate with us. I also want to thank the steering committee. Today's event is unprecedented for PLI in lots of ways, including the fact that we had a 25-person steering committee who helped us to organize the event. So if you were a part of the contributions of the steering committee, you got wine donations, beer donations, you found us a DJ, you did all kinds of work tonight. We want to congratulate and thank the steering committee. And finally, I want to thank all of the people who are still working right at this minute so that we can celebrate together. I want to thank all of the GSC staff who helped us tonight, especially our event coordinator, Cynthia Robinson. Where's Cynthia? Is she even here in the room right now? She's probably working somewhere. There she is. Thank you. I want to give a shout out to all the PLI staff, graduate students, work study students. We had a small army of people behind the scenes working here. And are any of you here at this moment, or are you all still working right now? Anybody? Nope, they're all working. So thank them when you see them. And finally, I want to thank the captain of the ship that made this happen. We talk about distributed leadership all the time in PLI, but as we know, the theory in practice is usually about delegation. not distributed leadership. But tonight we had a distributed leadership effort, and our captain was Cheryl Dominichelli. So thank you to Cheryl. Okay, so now on to the next thing we practice in PLI after gratitude, reflection. Anybody remember that in PLI? As a core leadership strategy. So here are some questions that I've been thinking about for a year, because we have been planning this event for a year. What was envisioned 20 years ago when Norton Grubb and Linda Treadway and others were laying the foundation for this program? What did the university vision for what was to come? And when I think about 20 cohorts, 600 alumni, a preparation program, a master's program, then adding an induction program, then adding grant programs, then helping districts, and now to international work, we have expanded the footprint of the Principal Leadership Institute over these 20 years with great purpose. We have also really connected with our sister program at UCLA PLI, expanding more opportunities between the two important leading campuses of the UC system. When I ask myself, what does 20 years of work of the PLI, how does that impact our alumni and their daily work? I hope that it's taken you from having peers in the field to having alumni teams. Many people are now hiring alumni to be on their teams, to having, dare I say, alumni bosses. Hopefully they're a little more equity-centered than some of our other bosses. And also now having alumni teaching in higher education, working in teacher ed, in leadership preparation, alumni moving between Los Angeles and the Bay Area, and the connections that are being formed across the state, and finally at the policy level. When you were in PLI, and I'm talking to anybody who's prior to cohort 18, or maybe 18 is the last one, when you were in Tolman Hall, did you ever wonder to yourself, what does a 21st century learning space look like at UC Berkeley? And so another evolution that's happened in these 20 years is Berkeley Way West. Do you like our new home? With a vision of cross-collaboration between psychology, education, and public health, our students are now learning in a 21st century building. Let me give you a few differences between Tolman and Berkeley Way West. The PLI staff no longer has to daisy chain extension cords across the classroom so that you can plug in your computers. The instructors no longer have to, unless they want to, push the instructor cart because there's built-in monitors in every classroom. You just plug in your computer, and you can even use the Wi-Fi to add sound. I'm still learning how to do that. We also have just such a student-friendly building. That's one of the things I love about this space. It welcomes our students. Students come here on the weekends. Alumni reach out to me and say, can we have a retreat on your campus so that we can have a quiet space to work? And you can even just go across the street to Triple Rock. I understand a few PLI cohorts have been there. So then here are a few other reflection questions I asked myself, but I won't entertain you with my thoughts, but just to say the questions. What has transpired in 20 years for the school districts we serve? What has transpired in the communities of the schools that we serve? And what has transpired in your life and in your career? And how do any of those things connect to the PLI? We've had a lot of PLI babies over the years, a few marriages and relationships coming out of PLI, but also milestones along the way. So of course, I also ask myself, what's the future of PLI in 20 years? Rebecca, when I sit in my car, which is usually where I do my reflection if I have the luxury of being alone, is, now, what do you think the next 20 years of PLI should be? The short answer is we need to stay the course. Our work is not done. 600 alumni and 20 cohorts later, we need a lot more people like you out doing the work. So we need to stay the course. Staying the course includes being vigilant about a few things. Being vigilant about the needs of our local schools and districts, continuing to serve as a broker between the university and schools. Also continuing to form partnerships that support our students' growth, but also our alumni's schools. And finally, the one that you all know already is it includes money. Now, why does it include money? Well, because we are enacting a social justice leadership program in, let's say it, a really elite institute of higher education. Now, we're excited about being an elite institute of higher education because people should have access, but that's where the money comes in. And so we continue to look for opportunities and ways to support our students. And I thank you all for being here tonight because you're a part of that legacy. Consider how you walk away from today and think about how you can help us to continue this work for the next 20 years and for the 20 years after that. Think about what you can do. Maybe you can refer a student to the program. Maybe you can refer someone to our induction program. Maybe you know about a grant opportunity and you'd like to work with PLI. Maybe you just have some thoughts about where preparation needs to go in the future. And maybe you have some spare change to give to the next cohort. But in any case, we look forward to your support. Finally, in addition to staying the course, we need to continue to have new learning edges in the PLI. And in the last few years, we have been engaging more systematically in thinking about issues of leadership sustainability in the field. With 600 graduates, it's important for us to think beyond preparation and early career programs to what will help and support leaders to remain in the profession, because change takes time. I hope you hear that tonight. I hope you're encouraged that even if you have a bad day, we get up and we do it again tomorrow, because change takes time. And together, we can do it. If we stand on each other's shoulders and we continue to rely on our networks, we can make true improvements for more equitable schooling for our most vulnerable students. When I arrived here 8 years ago, I can't believe I'm in my 9th year, but it goes fast, I learned some really special things about the PLI. So first, I want to say that because of where our work is situated, we have the opportunity to work with some of the most talented and passionate future leaders, which is an amazing opportunity. Secondly, I just want to say that we have the PLI family, the PLI love that I started with. Most programs on this campus, I venture to guess, don't talk about love, okay? But we do, because we know that that is one of the cornerstones of social justice. So think about how PLI love can help you continue to do your work. We've said this many times, but as a society, I just want to remind us, how we treat our children has a lot to say about who we are and our priorities. We extend those ideas to the PLI. Your work every day with kids, with teachers, with adults is how we know if we're making a difference. Our alumni, our legacy, and we look forward to hearing about your successes and your challenges, because it is in our interest, in our collective interest, to support each other. So thank you in advance for all you've done, and thank you for what you will do. Congratulations to you, alumni. And it is my pleasure to introduce the first assistant director of the PLI. We have one of those now. What's so special about this person, there's so many things so special about her, but a few include she's the embodiment of everything we want. She graduated from the GSE twice. She was a former elementary school teacher and elementary school principal, and of course, your own cohort 13. Please give it up for Assistant Director Soraya Sablo-Sutton.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good evening, everybody. Are you all still here? I know it's getting kind of late, but that's okay. Hang in there with us. It is my great honor to introduce 20 of our alumni, representing 2 decades of social justice leadership on behalf of underserved students. This work was started back in 1999 by our first founding director, Linda Treadway. And continued under the leadership of Rebecca Cheung. Can we give Rebecca another round of applause, please? I am honored every day to come to work and work with this woman. You know that. So as an alumni myself, I gotta give another shout out to cohort 13. Where you at? I can tell you firsthand, once you become a part of the PLI family, you never leave. They kind of don't let you, which is the best thing about this program. There is such a strong network, there is so much love, and there is so much good work going on in this room. Our 600 plus alumni serve in educational institutions throughout the Bay Area and beyond. And after 20 years, we have reached a sense of critical mass. It is hard to go to a school throughout the Bay Area that hasn't been touched and impacted by the work of the Principal Leadership Institute. As I introduce our 20 representatives, you will notice that they are working at all levels of education. They are teacher leaders, they are assistant principals, they are principals, and they are even district administrators and superintendents. Give them a pre-round of applause. They're about to come down. They are the true representation of the extraordinary people who carry on the work of the PLI into our public schools every day. Please join me in celebrating 20 of our alumni. Here we go. Representing cohort 1, Dr. Carling Aguilera Fort. Carling is the superintendent of Oxnard School District. Representing cohort 2, Kevin Kerr, director of secondary schools for San Rafael City Unified School District. From cohort 3 and a former PLI instructor, Elise Castro. Elise is the executive director of alternative high schools for San Francisco Unified. Cohort 4, come on down, Linda Kingston. Linda is the Director of Master Scheduling and Instruction for Sacramento City Unified School District. From cohort 5, we have Roma Groves Waters. Roma is the principal of Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary in Oakland Unified School District. All right, cohort 6. I just want to check, is Veronica here? Okay, we always have a plan B, C, and D. So, representing cohort 6, we have Alejandro Ramos. Alejandro is the Director of Student Services for Woodland Joint Unified School District. All right, cohort 7, come on down, Dr. Jeremy Helinski. He's got a lot of fans. Jeremy is the principal of Bret Harte Elementary in San Francisco Unified. All right, cohort 8, come on down, Jorge Melgoza. Oh, this is a big, important job. Jorge is the administrator of equity and disproportionality in Mount Diablo, USD. We need that. Thank you, Jorge. All right, cohort 9, Laurie Roberts. Laurie she is an instructional coach for educational technology in West Contra Costa, USD. All right, cohort 10 is represented by 10 in the house. All right, cohort 10, let me say his name. That is Ricky Mendoza, who got all the cheers. He is principal of Terra Hills Elementary, West Contra Costa, USD. I have to say, it's a good thing we have a very long staircase, right? Here we go. Cohort 11, please welcome Natasha Flint Moore. Natasha is the principal of Reach Academy in Oakland Unified. Cohort 12 is represented by Joe Truss. Joe is the principal of Visitation Valley Middle School in San Francisco Unified. All right, getting to cohort 13. That's my cohort. I'm a little biased. 13 in the house. Please say hello to Michael Essien, principal of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School. Michael heads up Martin Luther King Middle School in San Francisco Unified. All right, cohort 14, come on down, Tanya Coleman. Tanya is doing work right in our backyard. She is the assistant principal of Berkeley High School. Let's go. All right, cohort 15 is represented by John Nepomuceno. John is the assistant principal at Balboa High School in San Francisco Unified. I love it. All right, cohort 16. I notice it's getting louder and louder as the cohorts get down. What is that about? All right, cohort 16 is represented by Christy Chen. Christy is the dynamic vice principal at Pierce K-8 School in West Contra Costa. Representing cohort 17, we have Monique Jebritu Guedes. Monique is the assistant principal at Cappuccino High School in San Mateo Union High School District. Cohort 18 is represented by Josh Heidemann. Give it up for Josh. Josh is the assistant principal at James Baldwin Academy at the Seneca Family of Agencies. We're getting down to the wire. Cohort 19, where are you at? Okay, 19, bring it down. You see, they just graduated. They still have a lot of energy. Okay. Cohort 19 is represented by Leah Diarmi, Vice Principal of Learning Without Limits, Education for Change, Public Schools. And finally, Cohort 20, who is actually still taking classes right now. This representative, she probably feels like she should be home studying, but she's here with you tonight, and that's okay. Please give it up for Soo-Hyun Han Harris. Soo-Hyun is the Talent Development Associate for Oakland Unified School District. Please give all of our alumni a huge round of applause, including yourselves. As many people have said this evening, it is wonderful to be a part of an amazing program like PLI. It is even more important to stay in the work. This is what it looks like to stay in the work. Thank you all so much for your good work.